And welcome back to the Don Bullock Chevrolet Morning Show here on WHIG-TV. We have our special guest in the house, Dr. Shelton Jefferies with the Nash-Rocky Mount Public School System. Good morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Busy season. We were kind of talking about that off the air for you. There's a lot going on this time of year, so we appreciate you taking time.
Thank you for having me.
So just to kind of open up the platform, you've been with the Nash-Rocky Mount School System now for about 2.5 years?
2.5 years is correct.
In the time that you've been there, what has that been like?
It's been an incredible time. Very exciting. I've learned a lot. I really appreciate the warm embrace of the community. We've had a lot of challenges, but we've gotten a lot of work done.
Well, and you open the conversation up there. You have, I would say, a thankless job to some degree, and I say that not because as a challenge, but because of what you have to do as a responsibility.
Yes, sir.
And I kind of want to go through some of that a little bit. So, first off, you're administrating for students to get a good education. That is your primary objective.
Absolutely.
But then you also are having to deal with politicians and funding and buildings and buses and food and all the challenges that come with the people that are part of that process.
Yes, sir.
How do you deal with all those different elements of administrating a school system?
I think it's essential. Our chairman, Ann Edge, says keep the main thing the main thing. And for us, the main thing is our students. Right. The Board of Education, we have 11 board members. They are very intent in keeping me focused on what's best for the children of Nash-Rocky Mount Public Schools. I love the previous segment when you were talking about the responsibility of our citizenry to really hold elected officials accountable. As you know, we just finished budget season.
Right.
It's always a difficult time. And I really hope what I'm saying that's not perceived as an indictment of anyone, because the county commissioners have to feed a lot of mouths. And I never want to position the school system as we win and the sheriff's office loses.
Right.
We win and Nash Community College must lose. But if you would imagine the analogy of a bridge, it's a vital bridge, and it starts to come into disrepair over time.
Right.
And you have folks who say, well, we've had too many engineers dedicated to working on that bridge. We've had too many maintenance workers working on that bridge. At some point in time, with the decreased investment, that bridge comes into disrepair. So much so that it has to be closed,
right,
and no one can go across it. Well, public education represents a bridge to the future for 15,000 kids.
Wow.
And if we don't invest on an annual basis in keeping it a state-of-the-art bridge, we're going to do a disservice to many, many kids, and we do a disservice to the community.
Nice statement. So since you've opened that door a little bit, obviously you asked for some significant funding increases for a variety of reasons. And,
yes,
and
sir.
Let's kind of get into some of those reasons, because I think people all hear what they want to hear. And some people latch on to, okay, the teacher issue, the classroom sizes.
Yes,
some
sir.
people latch on to principals and let's compare ourselves to everybody else.
Yes, sir.
And some people are worried about the cost of resources for teachers in the classroom and,
right,
and all the things that go with actually teaching the kids.
Right.
Kind of sometimes becomes the last thing on the list versus the first thing on the list.
Well, and it's easy to perceive that. It's it's an excellent question. So my fear is that it's easy to cast this us versus them. Us is the administrators,
right,
versus the teachers. They're one and the same. If you say that you believe in student safety, you want to promote safety, you want to promote support for teachers, administrators are a fundamental support to teaching and learning.
Right.
Teachers, they evaluate teachers, they provide professional development and support to teachers. They address students who may want to disrupt the learning environment. They protect the entire learning environment from outside threats. So it's really hypocritical to say that you believe in school safety and you want to support teachers, but we need to eliminate administrators. I reject the premise that it's a us versus them type of dynamic. Elected officials are duly sworn to make their best judgment. I don't cast aspersions on the decisions that are made. The responsibility of my board is to present the needs of the district. We've done that. This year, we 1.2 million reflected the increases that are coming from the state, and another 800,000 was a shortfall due to a legislative change,
Right.
Where we can't move funds around as much as we could in the past. So that $2 million shortfall is what we presented. There was no fluff,
Right.
But I fully respect the county commissioner's decision to not accept that request. That's their right.
Well, and so let's delve into this a little differently. In dealing with schools and children, and
Yes,
the
sir.
challenges of dealing with that.
Yes, sir.
I think I want to kind of step back in time and bring us back to the present. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and 50 years ago. We
Yes,
can't
sir.
go back in time.
Right.
But the way schools were managed, the way children were considered a product of the school output.
Right.
You know, students come in and then they leave hopefully smarter than when they came in.
Absolutely.
That's the goal, that's your primary objective.
Absolutely.
But you've added functions and responsibilities over time in terms of raising kids, in terms of the health of kids and the feeding of kids and all those extra things that are not the primary objective of a school. How do you bear those additional responsibilities without bearing the cost of administering those responsibilities?
Wow. One, your question is eloquent, and I've never heard it articulated that well, but you're right. The overwhelming responsibilities of public schools have increased because of need. We're a public institution, and we have to be responsive to need.
Right.
So you're right. We are delving into so many responsibilities that historically were the responsibility of the home. And I'm not shirking that responsibility,
Right.
but you're right, it comes at an increased cost. It just so happens that our region is one of the highest nationally as it relates to chronic absenteeism. We're an impoverished region. We have high concentrations of poverty. So if you don't have services to address those needs, those students can't access the curriculum. They can't be successful.
Right.
And the brutal reality is we're going to invest on the front end or on the back end. Either we invest in attending to the needs of those students, and not just our most fragile, our most at promise. We have students that are ready to lead the nation,
Right.
their peers, and we need to invest and make sure that they have access to rigorous curriculum. But if we don't do those things, it's at a greater cost to the community and the region at a later date if it's incarceration.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and you know, we always say that education is the gateway to success and to escaping impoverishment.
I believe
it's also
that.
the gateway to continuing economic drive and development
I
in
believe
an
that.
existing community.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that's going to be coming to this community in the next few years is some economic growth. We've had economic challenges the last 10 years, let's be
Yes,
very
sir.
honest. But there is going to be some economic growth. Hopefully that brings in some population growth.
Right.
That brings in some new students to the school system.
Potentially.
But there's also going to, whether it's Triangle Tire, whether it's CSX, whether it's all the add-on businesses that come with that, Cummins and Pfizer who are adding on jobs.
Right.
That's going to be growing and changing our environment. But we're also going to have cultural changes coming in.
Agreed.
How does the Nash-Rocky Mount School System attend to changes in cultures and the kind of product that's coming into the school, the children?
Right. That's an excellent question. So, and I want to raise one point. You're right. I believe wholly that there's a wave of prosperity, economic prosperity coming to the region. But that's also a caution to particularly public schools and elected officials if we don't invest in students to make sure that they have marketable skills to take advantage
Right.
of that prosperity, they're going to be left on the sidelines. So the way that our school system has to be responsive culturally is, one, we need to be representative of the community that we serve. So in our recruitment, in our hiring and retention practices, we need to make sure that we reflect the community that we serve.
Right.
We also need to make sure that we set up forums where we can get feedback from the needs of our constituents. We have a standing parent advisory committee that meets on a monthly basis. That is a give and take. It's us getting feedback from representatives from every school in the system. Our board meetings are an excellent forum for folks to come and give commentary. And every single day I receive either emails or calls from our constituents. So making sure that we're open and have an open posture to the public is essential in us being responsive. But you're right, there's a great deal of promise in the future, but that won't be realized if we're not prepared. Some economic development can be stifled if we don't have a first-class educational system.
How do you prepare for that? What are do you have any plans to anticipate that kind of change?
I do. If you'll look, in my brief tenure here, we've made investments in both equity, that's addressing the needs of our most fragile students, and excellence. In the excellence arena, we've been recognized as an advanced placement district, honor roll district, because we've expanded participation in advanced placement, our most rigorous courses. We're going to offer the advanced placement degree. We've onboarded and added dual language immersion where students are becoming fluent in Spanish in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. So there are lots of investments in excellence.
I would make a suggestion that Chinese might be one that we want to learn with the new tire plant coming
That's
down.
an excellent recommendation, and we pursued Mandarin. And the challenge was it's difficult to get native speakers to come to other than metropolitan regions.
Right. Well, we may not have
but
that
there may be
challenge
some,
in the near future.
absolutely, and we'll be exploring that.
So let's talk about the future. Let's talk about also some of the things, and this is nothing that's a surprise to you. I'm not ambushing you, but these are things I'm sure you've been challenged on already by other people, so I want to give you your shot to kind of talk about these things.
Right.
There are challenges that you also face, some issues that have come to public light, and one of those is like Williford School.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain, to the best of your ability, the current plans to addressing Williford School?
We've been tasked, staff has been tasked by the Board of Education to engage in the exploration and planning phase for Williford. Just to give some background to folks that may be unfamiliar, Williford is one of our most underperforming elementary schools. So much so it was designated by the state for potential takeover through the ISD, the Innovation School District.
And Nash-Rocky Mount and the Nash County were unanimously against that takeover.
Correct. What we're exploring is the potential for embedding a school-based health clinic there. And the rationale is this: you won't find fragile schools that aren't embedded in a fragile community. So if you're going to engage in school transformation, that transformation effort has to touch the community in which that school resides.
So it's not just about the students in the building.
Absolutely. It has to have a broader scope. So by providing access to quality mental and physical health care, by focusing on health and wellness, as well as improving student achievement, we have a chance to really have an impact broader than the one we've ever had. But the challenges for Williford were many years in the making.
Right.
It
Long before you got here.
And I'm not shirking responsibility, but that's a fact. And I only raised the premise because it's not an irrational thought that it would take an equal amount of time to make a transformation in the school, but we don't have that time.
And expectations are you would like to see it fixed sooner than
absolutely,
later.
Absolutely.
So Williford brings into light maybe a conversation that people don't talk about as much. And,
Yes, sir.
We had 2016, you came on board, and then 6 months later we had the whole county line merger debate go on. But let's just kind of look at that from a big picture perspective,
Yes, sir.
50,000 foot.
Yes, sir.
You have to school everybody in Nash County and some kids from Edgecombe County.
Correct.
All of Rocky Mount, but not all of Rocky Mount.
Correct.
Which is very confusing if people don't understand where the lines are drawn. But you also are populating schools from a mix of geographies.
Correct.
Can you explain what it's, and this is multifaceted, so I'm going to give you time to answer this one, what it's like to incorporate the metropolitan area of Rocky Mount, South Rocky Mount, downtown Rocky Mount, North Rocky Mount with its population, and then also all of Nash County, all the way down to Sims and in that area, who then are having to be a part of this system, and then also deal with the repopulation of buildings based on certain criteria.
I need to hire you as my agent, first of all. That really was an excellent synopsis of the composition of our district. We have urban, rural, and suburban features. And the best answer to your question is, how do we plan, design services, and meet the needs of such a diverse community? It's first and foremost by having the most talented professionals doing the work with us. We have a very, very talented team at Nash-Rocky Mount, but the needs of our community and the multiple constituencies is very complex. So again, having those forums where you can engage in an exchange, a back and forth, making sure that our board members are informed and able to be responsive to their constituencies, and we receive a tremendous amount of guidance from the Board of Education. They are the symbolic representation of our community.
Right.
All 11 of those members were elected to serve their constituencies, and they do an excellent job of that. So having a forum where we get that guidance from the elected representatives as well as professionals who are embedded in the community and have a vested interest. Many of our staff students our children are students in our system, so they're vested. But it is a very complex challenge. And right now, we see that there have been concerted efforts for the economic development to kind of set aside some of those past divisive issues.
Right.
I've been very encouraged by that, and my hope is that that will continue.
Okay, and great response, and I appreciate
Thank
that. Cutting a little deeper into the meat of this,
Yes,
and
sir.
this is one of those where, again, people see the surface of things, they don't necessarily understand what goes on underneath.
Right.
Talk about, I guess, the moving the populations around into different schools, because I've talked about it. One of the things that I visibly is frustrating is to see a young student get on a bus in Edgecombe County to go to high school, and they drive past Rocky Mount High on their way to Nash Central.
Right.
And how or why do those things typically occur?
So typically the composition of a school, there may be some special programming that student accesses. For example, if a student's identified for exceptional children's services, the program needs at their closest school may not be appropriate. We have a limited number of dollars, so we don't have representation in all schools. So sometimes it's based on student need. Sometimes it's based on a request from the parents. They may pursue a transfer request to go to a school beyond
But
their
some of it is also
neighborhood
just the
school.
districting,
And
right?
sometimes it's the logistics of the school. As you know, we have compositions where we have K2 and 3-5 constructs.
Right.
So the K2 may be closest to your school, but once your child reaches third grade,
gotta go
they're going to
somewhere
be
else.
going past to go to another. And again, the fundamental challenge for our district is the resources are fixed and finite. And as you so beautifully articulated, the needs are going up every year. The expectations are going up every year. No other industry is confronting having increased expectations, having increased responsibilities, and less resources,
Right.
and expected to hit the home run every single time.
All right, so let's talk about part of the engine, the machine.
Yes, sir.
You've talked about it a little bit, but in terms of the teachers and the people who are putting the instruction into
Absolutely.
the students.
Absolutely.
What is it, the process, and how can, let me step back. In maintaining a staff and teacher workforce
Right.
that is educated, trained, and is competitively recruited against all the communities around us, what is that challenge like?
It's significant. Being in the northeastern part of our state is a challenge unto itself. Historically, recruitment of talent has been a challenge. If they don't have a regional connection, you may lose them because we don't have quite the trappings of a metropolitan area.
Right.
But for our organization, if we're going to have excellent teachers, we have to have excellent leaders because it's a truism. Great teachers congregate around great principals and great assistant principals, and they have to feel supported and they have to feel invested in. Unfortunately, we're at a time in education when professional development funding is being cut. So we've got to find ways via alternative funds, via unique partnerships to continue to invest in our teacher force. But it's a challenge. Right now, 1/3 of our teacher force comes from non-traditional paths, meaning they got trained in another discipline and then committed to education.
And that's been, for some people, a concern. They didn't come from a college and get an education degree. They came from the private sector, and maybe they go into math or something like that.
Yes, sir.
And they can work for up to 2 years without a teacher certificate. Then they have to get their certificate.
It's actually 3 years,
3
and
years.
they have to commit. Now, some of that is going to change, but I don't want to cast aspersions on that cohort because some of our most dynamic teachers came through that path. The commitment is they will go back and secure both the coursework and the licensure. They'll pass the state exams. So we honor and celebrate the commitment. But if we didn't acknowledge that that's a growing trend in our region, I'd do a disservice to the public.
Right.
And I fully expect that will increase.
And some parents out there will, whether right or wrong, may say, well, that's not a real teacher teaching my child.
Well, and I would disagree with that premise. I understand how you get to that point, but the most important thing about a teacher, content knowledge and curricular knowledge is important, but the commitment to serving children is preeminent.
Right.
And it speaks to efficacy, your belief that you can have a difference. If you don't have that sense of efficacy, that I believe everything I do is important in the life of a child, if you aren't committed to being of service to a child, being that shepherd across that bridge that we talked about, you can't be an effective teacher regardless of your knowledge. So we have coaches, curricular specialists in place to help and embed the content knowledge, but we don't have a pill for that willingness to serve and that love of children.
Right. So to answer that question, and this is kind of how I've answered in the past, how many people go into teaching to get rich?
I don't know any.
How many people go into the education system just to have a job?
I don't know any.
If they do they get weeded out pretty quickly?
They do. It's a brutal profession in terms of if you're not committed, if you're not fiercely dedicated to your craft, you get exposed. We're a self-policing culture. Your colleagues will identify that you're not committed to this work. But those perceptions persist.
Right.
You know, and it's really unfortunate.
And it's one of those things, and I've said this again as a parent who's got kids both in high school and middle school. Teaching anybody who's in the public service employment. So whether you're a firefighter, a teacher, a policeman, EMT, anybody who does those professions does it for the love of the profession, for the love of what they're doing. It certainly is not for the paycheck.
Right. It's heart first. I agree.
It's a calling. It is a passion. It is not something you do for self. It is selfless in a lot of ways.
I agree.
And you sacrifice the self in a lot
of
ways.
And we face another challenge because public education is such a common experience. Everyone's gone to school.
Right.
So because you have that level of experience, you think you know a great deal about how it should run.
You mean
and what
school
isn't
like it was 30 years ago?
It's not. It's not. I mean, the audacity of us investing in a bunch of computers and technology. Who needs that fancy schmancy
Well, I thought
stuff?
y'all using new math anyway. You don't need computers.
Right. But again, we laugh. But tell me any other industry that isn't expected to advance with the advancements of the society that it's embedded in. Imagine if the medical field still looked like it did in 1950. You know, imagine
if we were still predicting pregnancies with dead rabbits.
Absolutely.
Would we accept that today?
It would be criminal. So you know,
Wayne's laughing at that.
Right. So there are expectations that are just unrealistic for public education. I love it. I love and respect and revere the people that commit to it, and our children are so worth the effort and the fight and the commitment.
All right, so let's get to the children's aspect, and we've got just a few more minutes here, but this one is one I know has been a challenge for you recently.
Okay.
When it comes to both the safety side and student behavior and then disciplines within the walls of the school system.
Yes.
And then parents' reactions to what they perceive is going on and some expectations of communication or not.
Absolutely.
What is the expectation for parents, and then what is their path for information regarding their questions about what's going on?
Absolutely. Excellent question. So first and foremost, parents are our customers, and we want to elevate their voice, not silence their voice. But to the essence of your question, there are ways to get your needs met most expediently, the quickest way. First and foremost is by accessing the building administrators, finding out exactly what's going on, exactly what the plan is to support or address the issue. If you're dissatisfied, we have an executive director for every level, elementary, middle, and high school.
Right.
They support the principals, they guide the principals, they hold principals accountable. If you remain dissatisfied, each of those executive directors reports to a chief academic officer. Then, if you still are unsatisfied, we have a chief of staff,
Right.
who I speak with every day. And then I am able to support parents. And if they still are dissatisfied, they have an appeal to the Board of Education.
Okay. So there is a proper chain of escalation.
There is. And now there will be some issues where they will jump directly to me. That's appropriate, but I will always caution them to get the information from the principal.
Right.
If they need support from any of those levels of support, we'll make sure we provide it. But we want to make sure everyone is heard, because every single one of our schools has to be a safe environment for students and staff.
So, again, student behavior, there are expectations for students who are going to behave a certain way.
Correct.
Kids are kids, though.
Correct.
Kids are full of hormones and emotion and challenges, and then there are some big kids and little kids, loud kids and quiet kids.
Right.
Some are physically expressive and some are
Correct.
intelligently expressive.
Correct.
How does the school system manage that so that conflict doesn't arise?
Well, training, professional development. There's a network of support that we had to have. In my tenure, we've embedded school level supports through a partnership with communities and schools. We have professionals who've been trained in the social affective arena to work with our most fragile students, but also be a support for teachers, to give them strategies for those students before they meet crises.
Right.
So it's an ongoing and evolving need, and we have to constantly stay current and make adjustments based on our students' needs.
All right. One of my last two questions here for you. And
Okay.
this one is going back to the bigger landscape.
Okay.
You face more competition in the community now than public schools have ever faced in history.
Yes,
in
sir.
terms of charter school options, private school options, homeschool options. When facing parents who are making a choice, an
Right.
alternative choice to public school,
Right.
what challenges does that present for the public school system in competing with that arena?
Another excellent question. First, I welcome the challenge and the competition. I think it makes us better. And my caution to every single parent that may be watching, make the best decision for your child. I do not view my competitors as adversaries. If you're serving a child in a quality manner, you're really my compatriot. I want you to be successful, and I want parents to be pleased with the services they get. For us as a public institution, we have to get better at marketing the great things that we're doing. We've been so focused on the work that we haven't taken time to market,
Right.
and that's where we've been losing historically. We have to constantly make sure that we're making adjustments to the services and programming that we're offering. So all of those are things that we're getting better. But I welcome the competition. I think it's what's best for children. And I caution parents, again, do what's best for your family and your child.
Great answer. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Dr. Jefferies, you've again been here 2.5 years.
Yes, sir.
You're dealing with a lot of challenges, but also has some successes.
Yes, sir.
So we've talked a lot about the challenges. I want you to have a moment here to really talk about some of your successes to market those very things you were talking about.
Certainly, certainly. As I've shared, we've focused on both equity and excellence. We've increased the school level supports for our students that are most fragile and most at risk. We've also increased the level of rigor for our students that are most at promise. We've been recognized for advanced placement. We're going to be an advanced placement diploma. We're expanding early college. We're very excited about that. We're bringing on City High School, which is the Center for Industry, Technology, and Innovation,
Right.
where our students will be able to gain industry certifications as well as an associate's to go right into industry, earning a quality living. So we're very excited about those
And
accomplishments.
I want to really recommend and commend that, because
Thank you.
one of the things that's been very popular the last 10 years is you don't just have to have a college degree to be successful.
Absolutely.
Trade industries and experience and small business
Absolutely.
there's a lot of path to success for that.
Absolutely.
And the city and the school system is taking that opportunity to provide those tools and a path for somebody who may not be going after college.
Absolutely.
people who work in the HVAC trade make a lot of
Do
money.
very well.
They do very well.
Do very well.
And there's actually a shortage of people going into that industry.
There is, and we're taking advantage of that in partnership with Nash Community College. They're an incredible partner, and we're excited about where it will go. Right now, we're focused on automotive and advanced manufacturing, but we fully expect it to grow in response to the community's needs. We have excellent corporate citizens like Cummins Engine Plant that we want to make sure that we're providing the workforce that they need.
So there's a lot of good things. You've definitely got challenges,
Thank
but there
you.
are some good things.
Yeah, we're excited.
One of the things I would love for you to come back and talk about in the future, as we're finishing up here, is to talk more about the early college and the city school.
I'll do it.
Also talking about school safety in light of some of the issues going on in Florida and that kind
Yes,
of thing.
sir. I welcome the
Conversations
opportunity.
about arming schools. So we don't have time to
Absolutely.
get into that today, but I do want to invite you to come back and sometime in the near future and continue the conversation.
I'll definitely do it. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. Well, Dr. Shelton Jefferies, we again appreciate you coming on the Don Bullock Chevrolet Morning Show. Any last comments you want to give to parents watching out there?
Parents and students, this is a very exciting time of year. We're going into award season, graduation. We're finishing up strong with our testing. Just want to make sure that parents are making sure that students are well rested and come to school prepared to finish strong.
All right. With that, we will take our next break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.